You're fired! Fired.
For 2 weeks, they thought Bobby Kincaid was just the old janitor on nights. "Throw those pictures away, old man," Preston Vale said. "This plant is done worshiping ghosts." Then Bobby signed the firing paper, and Preston finally read the name he should have known.
Make sure to subscribe and like the video. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Thank you for being here, and God bless you.
The hallway outside Rolling Mill 3 smelled like mop water, motor oil, and cold iron. Bobby Kincaid pushed his gray bucket slowly past the wall of photographs. He had cleaned that hallway every night for 2 weeks. Every night, he stopped in the same place. The pictures were old. Some were curling at the corners. Some had brown water stains. But Bobby knew every face. There was Carl with the missing finger. There was Big Eddie from the Union Hall. There was Tommy Reese, who brought apple pie to every Sunday picnic because his wife made too much. And there, near the middle, stood Bobby himself. In 1974. Back then, he had black hair, a hard jaw, and arms strong enough to lift a gearbox with one other man. He had helped pour concrete under the South Bay. He had watched the first furnace fire like it was Christmas morning. Now he wore a janitor badge clipped to his pocket. That did not bother him. Work was work. A man who swept the floors still helped the place stand. At 2:15 in the morning, the night crew came through on break. Their boots squeaked on wet tile. Somebody carried gas station coffee. Somebody else smelled like menthol cough drops and cigarette smoke from the loading dock. "Evening, Bobby," one worker said. Bobby nodded. "Evening." Then the elevator doors opened. Preston Vale stepped out like he owned the air. He wore a charcoal suit under a black wool coat. His shoes shined too much for a plant floor. His smile was thin, practiced, and empty. He looked at the wall of photographs. Then he looked at Bobby. Why are these still here? The hallway went quiet. Bobby leaned both hands on the mop handle. "Because they belong here." Preston's smile disappeared. And that was the first moment the night crew understood this was not about photographs. Preston Vale stepped closer to the wall. "These are coming down tonight," he said. Nobody moved. The old photographs showed men in hard hats, denim jackets, and lunch stains on their shirts. Men who had missed birthdays to keep furnaces running. Men who knew the sound of a bad bearing before any gauge did. Bobby looked at the pictures, then back at Preston. "No, sir," he said quietly. Preston blinked. He was not used to hearing that word from someone holding a mop. "I'm sorry?" Bobby's voice stayed even. "I said, no, sir." A few workers lowered their eyes, not because they were ashamed of Bobby, because they were afraid for him. Preston gave a short laugh. "Do you know what these pictures are?" he asked. "They are clutter. They are dead weight. This company is moving forward. Bobby touched the frame of the center photograph. These men gave their backs to this place. They were paid. Not enough. That answer landed hard. A man near the vending machine coughed into his fist. Another stared at the floor. The old pop machine hummed like it was trying to cover the silence. Preston turned red around the ears. "Do you think this is a union meeting?" "No," Bobby said. "I think it is a hallway." That made someone almost laugh. Preston heard it. The young executive stepped close enough for Bobby to smell peppermint and expensive aftershave. "You're done," Preston said. "Badge, keys, now." Bobby did not move. The night crew stared at him. Some of them had fathers in those photographs. Some had grandfathers. One woman wiped her eyes with the back of her glove. Bobby slowly unclipped his janitor badge. He placed it in Preston's open hand. Then he said, "You can take my badge, Mr. Vale, but you cannot throw away the men who built your office." Preston's mouth tightened. "Security will escort you out after paperwork." Bobby nodded once. But when Preston called for the dismissal form, he had no idea whose signature he was about to ask for. The supervisor's office was small and too warm. A space heater rattled under the desk. Old coffee burned in the pot. Snow tapped against the window like fingernails. Preston stood over Bobby with a clipboard. "Sign here," he said. Bobby sat in the metal chair with his lunch pail on his knees. The same lunch pail he had carried in 1968, when the plant was still half mud and scaffolding. Preston slid the form across the desk. "Reason for termination," he read aloud. "Insubordination. Failure to follow disposal order. Disruption of workplace modernization." The words sounded foolish in that little room. Bobby looked through the glass. The night crew had gathered outside. They tried not to stare, but every face was turned toward him. He opened the lunch pail. Inside was no sandwich, no thermos, no apple wrapped in wax paper. There was a folded envelope, a black fountain pen, and an old dedication photograph from the day the first furnace lit. Preston frowned. "What is that?" "Something I should have used sooner," Bobby said. He took out the pen. Preston leaned back with that cold smile returning. "Make it quick. Some of us still run companies." Bobby looked up at him. "No," he said. "Some of you run offices." The room went silent. Then Bobby signed. First, Robert Kincaid. Then, below it, in careful block letters, he added 4 words. Founder, Class A shareholder. Preston's smile died before he could hide it. He snatched the form closer. His eyes moved over the words once, then again. "That's not possible," he whispered. Bobby capped the pen and placed it back in the lunch pail. "It was possible before you were born." Outside the glass, the night crew stood frozen. Preston reached for his phone. Bobby stood slowly. Broad shoulders filling the little office, like he had grown taller. "Call whoever you need to call," he said, "but start with the board." Preston looked down at the form again, because if that signature was real, Bobby Kincaid had not just been fired, he had just been handed the key to remove them all. Bobby stepped back into the hallway, but nobody spoke. The old photographs were still on the wall. The mop bucket was still by the door. Preston Vale stood behind the glass, pale and staring at the phone in his hand. Some men win by shouting. Bobby Kincaid had waited 74 years to let a piece of paper speak for him. And now the question was simple. How many people in that boardroom had forgotten who really owned the ground beneath their polished shoes? If this story held you for even a moment, stay with Bobby. Like this video, subscribe, and watch part 2, because the board is about to learn that the old janitor did not come back to clean the factory. He came back to reclaim it.